Hello, and welcome to this drum machine tutorial with computer music. In this session, we're going to recreate the Lindrum pattern that was used on kate bushes running up that hill. As we're going to be centering this around the sounds from a Lindrum, have a look in your DAWs library and see if you can find an appropriate library that will suit your needs. The chances are it'll be called something like Lindrum or L-Drum or something of that nature. We're working in Logic Pro here, and you can see we have the sampler open, and part of the factory set in Logic, we can see in the electronic drum arena we have Lindrum processed kit. That should do just fine. So let's begin with the basics. First of all, we need to put a bass drum or a kick drum on beats 1 and 3, and we need to put a snare drum on beats 2 and 4. The kick is located on note C1, and the snare one tone above it on note D1. The interesting thing about this particular sequence and pattern is that it's a one-bar sequence with no hi-hats. It's the toms in this pattern that take over the duties from the hi-hat. So whereas the hi-hat would normally cook along quite nicely, the toms do something very similar, but with that more sonorous texture. So let's look at what we've got. First of all, we're going to deal with a mid-tom sound, which sounds like that. We thought in the factory set that was provided with Logic that the toms sounded a little bit on the sharp side. So what we've done is we've highlighted the particular tom sound, in this case it's the middle tom, which you can see is on the note A1, and we've just dragged the tuning down a little bit to make it a little bit more sonorous. You could do something very similar in your own package, and particularly if it's sample based, you shouldn't have any issues doing that, because it's actually what the Lindrum used to be able to do right from the front panel. So what's interesting about this tom pattern is that the first beat and the second beat and the fourth beat are the same. You can see that the second of each 16th notes is not there, but in the third beat you can see we have triggers on every 4 of the 16th notes. This means we have a pattern like this. Now alongside that we have a single low tom strike which happens on the second 16th of the third beat. We'll hear that more clearly if I mute up the existing toms. So it just adds an interesting little offbeat element at that particular point in the bar. The last thing that we need to look at is a rim shot, which you'll find on note C#1. And it just plays on the very first beat of every single bar. Just like that. And that's all there is to it. You may certainly want to do something in production terms to make this sound a little bit more like the 80s, and one thing you could do is apply some sort of reverb which gives a very sort of gated effect. So for example, we've just applied the Ultraverb from Eventide, and we're using a plate setting with roughly a 1.3 second reverb, but quite a generous amount set to wetness, so it's 30% dry and 70% wet.